And now, from the playing field of Banneker to the locker room of RFK Stadium, it's Inside Sports with your host, Harold Bell.
Well, Harold has been a crusader for the rights of black people all of his life. He has also been a crusader that have had a lot of friends, not only in the black community, but the white community in sports. And he's one of my friends. Over the years, we've done many things together. So Harold is truly a man that believes in his culture and his people and will always be that way because nobody's ever been able to change him. So, hey, that's my partner.
In the sports world today, everyone claims to be an insider. Harold Bell is the original insider. Washington Times sports columnist Dick Heller says Harold Bell is the godfather of sports talk, the good kind. He played message music such as Wake Up Everybody by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, What's Going On by his homeboy and friend Marvin Gaye, and the James Brown classic Black and Proud. He was the first on-air sports talk show personality to write commentaries and the first to host sports media roundtables. Harold Bell is the man for all seasons. He was the first sports media personality to involve pro athletes, politicians, judges, entertainers, and media personalities in his community endeavors. In November 1974, he became the first Afro-American to host and produce his own sports television special in prime time on NBC affiliate WRC-TV4 in Washington, D.C. His special guest, the greatest, Muhammad Ali.
And you know, they say that friendship is like our shadows. They're sticking with you as long as you're in the sun, but once you cross over into the shade, the shadow disappears. How do you distinguish your friends?
Well, I wrote something once that says, friendship is a priceless gift that cannot be bought nor sold, but its value is far greater than a mountain made of gold. For gold is cold and lifeless, it can neither see nor hear. In time of trouble, it's powerless to cheer. It has no ears to listen, no heart to understand. It cannot bring you comfort or reach out a helping hand. So when you ask God for gifts, be thankful if he sends, not diamonds, pearls, or riches, but the love of real true friends.
This is Muhammad Ali, the heavyweight champion of the whole wide world. I love all of you to check out Inside Sports with my main man, Harold Bell. Inside Sports, it's a knockout.
All right. Welcome to Speak the Truth. I'm your host, Harold Bell, with my co-host and main man, Gary Johnson, backing us up in any difficulties that we may have. I was on two shows this past week. One was the Roundball Report, and we discussed, of course, Bill Russell. But there was one item that I wanted to get to, we didn't get to it, and that was the status of Brittney Griner in her From Russia with Love. And then I was on my man's talk show on Fox Sports on Saturday, and we talked about Bill Russell again, but we did not get to Brittney and what her status is as of today. So that's one of the two topics that I want to talk about, including Bill Russell. And my special guest today is a native Washingtonian. He comes from good stock. His father, Andrew Sr., was an outstanding athlete at the legendary Armstrong High School in Washington, D.C. It is the only D.C. public high school in the country with two NFL Hall of Fame players, and that's Lynn Ford of the Cleveland Browns and Willie Wood of the Green Bay Packers. My guess's athletic accomplishments are overshadowed by his accomplishment as a husband, father, and he has been a pillar in the community as the founder of the Roundball Report. The show is an award-winning basketball television show seen on Prince George's County Television for the past several decades. The benefactors read like a who's who in American sports, journalists. Too many to mention in this space. I would like to welcome, of course, my special guest and friend, Mr. Andrew Dyer, Jr. Andrew, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on Speak the Truth. And my next guest, I'm gonna let Andrew introduce the queen of his Roundball Report. We got several of them. I said we got one of them today, but Andrew will introduce her when he comes on. My next guest,
Andrew's on.
I'm sorry, I'm on, Harold.
I don't know where he is.
Harold, can you hear me?
Andrew's on.
Who, Billy?
No, Andrew, he's on.
Yeah, I see him.
Okay. He thought you couldn't see him.
Yeah, I see him. He's good. Andrew, you good.
Okay.
My next guest is a native Washingtonian. He's a legendary playground basketball player. He was a first-team All-Met player out of John Carroll Catholic High School and was sought by colleges all over the country. He chose the University of Maryland. Critics say there was no one who could check him one-on-one, especially off the dribble. He was a 6'4" guard forward, and one critic called him the best swing man since Benny Goodman. Now, if y'all knew who Benny Goodman was, it tells your age. I don't know where he is, but I called him. You know he's supposed to be here. I'm talking about the one and only Billy Bryant. My final showstopper guest is a sports talk radio host on iHeart Fox Radio out of Rochester, New York. He has been in the sports talk radio business for over 2 decades. His talk show radio tag is What's Going On. He and his crew opened the show with my homeboy and friend Marvin Gaye's classic, none other than What's Going On. I would like to welcome the one and only Mr. Nate Brown Jr. How you doing, Nate?
Peace. I'm here.
Peace.
I'm here. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. I want to start out talking about Brittney Griner because, man, that is, I mean, Putin is playing President Biden. Don't make no mistake about it. He is playing Biden, man. We may never see this girl again, and that is a sad commentary, man, that she has gotten caught up in the politics of America and Russia. And in Russia, they don't like drugs, and they don't, and you know they're very homophobic. You know that, don't you? So,
well, that's what I was gonna say, Harold. I was gonna say she got the double whammy going on, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm just keeping it gangster. They don't do well with the letters. LGBTQ, they don't do well with that. You know, they got to be on the down low all the time, unfortunately. Also, the whole thing with the vape, I'm saying, how many years has Brittney Griner been going to Russia? Let's dissect this for a second. This ain't her first rodeo. So I'm just saying, you've been to Russia multiple times. You probably had your stuff multiple times, but they never bothered you. They probably never bothered you because you wasn't on their radar. Like Mr. Bell said, all of a sudden, we have international incident, and you're caught up in the mix. So unfortunately, now she's a pawn. But one of the things I noticed, because like I did some research on Ms. Griner, you know, she was married a couple times, right? First time she got married, she beat up the first wife. So she kind of had like that strong kind of like that masculine kind of women thing going on with her. This is what I noticed. But now she's in jail. It's like a different vibe to me as I'm watching her. She doesn't seem as cocky because I guess she's in a situation that she can lose her life. So I see a softer side of Brittney Griner. I've never seen this side before. And then when you in some trouble, you know, the other side come out. So I see like a more contrite young lady, like, you know what? I think I really, really messed up on this one. I don't know what anybody else got to say, but I think she really is starting to kick in like, you know what? I could really be here for 9 years, like on some real stuff. I don't know if she realized that before, Mr. Andrew. I don't know. I don't know what you think.
Andrew, come on in on your take, Andrew.
Well, first, let me introduce my co-host for the last 10 years, former Sidwell friends and Duke University star Janée Hayes.
Yes, Ms. Hayes.
Yes, yes, the lovely Janée Hayes. She'll give her perspective on women's basketball, but my perspective on the Brittney Griner thing is apparently that softer side has been there. She actually her first wife got pregnant by a man. and that was why she
went off the deep end, huh?
That's why she
see, I didn't have that information. Now, see that, Andrew? You plugged the dike for a brother on that one. I didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah. So that was why Brittney, she had her heart broken and decided to break her jaw. But,
wow. Wow. And really got the inside.
Man, that is inside sports right there for real.
Yeah.
Let's speak the truth.
But she's definitely caught up in the middle. Like you said, she's played in Russia her whole career. And she's been in the WNBA for 9 years. And she played in Russia the entire time. And you know that this is not new. And they had no reason to check. Oh, why would they check her luggage? This wasn't in her carry-on. They opened up her suitcase and found it there. So like you said, it was the timing of it couldn't have been worse for her in that they had just started the war with Ukraine. He doesn't like Biden. He was playing Trump like a flute. Trump wanted to be a dictator like him. And Biden knows that there's no upside in going to war with Russia. So she is a political pawn. It's unfortunate. As you said, they're very homophobic over there. The WNBA is very homocentric in a positive way to the LGBTQ community.
Yes.
So they're pioneers, and Janée can talk more about that aspect of it. But it's very, very serious, and I'm hoping that but to go back to the sentencing, Russia is trying to manipulate a trade to get Brittney Griner and this other diplomat in exchange for a convicted murderer. So
an arms dealer.
In order for it to try to look like an even trade, they had to convict her for something and to give her a long sentence. So she's a political pawn right now. She's got to be fearful for her life. Because you can't put anything past Russia, but I'll let Janée weigh in with her thoughts.
Come on, Janée.
So I've been all over the place with this, just going from a former international player to just being a woman, a basketball player, all of those things. So we all know that she's a pawn because 9 years is egregiously outrageous for that. However, I will say across the board, men and women, athletes, professional athletes get this era of exclusivity or of whatever it is, untouchability.
Immunity.
And so when she's been going to the country and she's never been touched, and I'm pretty sure that the owner of her team is probably a mafia person, whereas certain discretions go unblemished because the owner of your team is the head of the mafia. So you kind of leave it where it is. But in this time, all bets are off. Putin runs it. And okay, the mafia run your small area, but Putin runs the mafia. So whatever he says goes. And when you're caught in that type of situation, whatever rules are in place, you must follow them. When in Rome, do as the Romans, don't do as the Americans. Like we have this overconfidence when we go into other countries that they're supposed to abide by America's rules. Absolutely not. That's why they're their own countries. They have their own set of rules that they expect to follow. Now, was her sentencing harsh, extremely harsh? Yes, but I hope that there will be a trade made. I don't know how expeditiously that'll come to pass, but I do hope that it comes. And in that time, she does humble herself, and other athletes start to rethink how they carry themselves when you are off of American soil. And my other point is, how do you expect non-Americans to go by American rules when Americans don't go by American rules?
Right.
So that's why I said I'm all over the place. I'm like, all of this is nonsensical. Like, it was immature, maybe a little arrogant on her part to say, well, I'm cool, I'm Brittney Griner. But then on the other part, it's like, naivete is just, it's just an awful situation all the way around.
Gary, come on in, Gary.
Well, I agree with Janée. Actually, I agree with what everyone else has said. I think that the real negotiations start now that she's been convicted. So we got all that theater out the way. And so now all the backroom stuff is going to start. And clearly she's a pawn. And so the hard negotiations are going to take place, and they'll let her go, and Putin feels like he's gotten what he wants out of embarrassing the U.S., out of knuckling, getting their guys back, and then they'll send her back.
Because one of the guys that they want, you said is a murderer, he's the dude that was poisoning everybody around the world for Putin. And he's in Germany. So this is, and Mr. Blount will tell you about this because he knows about international politics. That guy's in Germany. So now you got to do, it's like a NBA three-way trade. Am I right? You got the Russians, the Americans, and the Germans. So now, what do the Germans want for me to get that guy? What does so now you said it, Janée. So now it becomes a real sticky situation of how we maneuver this, because that other guy they want ain't even in America. He in Germany, right, Mr. Blount?
Well, here's the deal. This is, and I think Gary alluded to it, this is a high-stake geopolitical game where you have three world powers, United States, China, and Russia. And because of the economic implications and that war that's going on in Ukraine, Putin has a little more to lose because he thought he was going to go in there just like Adolf Hitler took Hungary in about an hour and a half. He took Czechoslovakia in 1 hour. Took him all day to get Poland because the land mass is so much longer. And Putin thought he was going to walk in there and basically annex that country. So, Janée, is that correct? I think you're absolutely right. It was some political naivety on her part. Look, we have to read and study because it's an economic thing. They wanted her to come over there to play basketball to make money for the Russian economy. And she's got to understand what's at stake. This is big time stuff. This ain't no inner city pop pie and all that stuff. This is main stage activism. That's all it is. And it's high stakes because people's lives are lost. Now, getting back to what Brother Nate Brown just said, if Germany is involved, that makes the matter even more complicated because Russia was supplying Germany with all the natural gas that they need to keep warm during the winter. So what are they going to do about that? That's why it's complex. Now, the only thing I hope that she doesn't go into one of them gulags. You remember a guy named Shevardnadze wrote the book, The Alapaco Gulag, some 25, 30 years ago, what they did with dissidents who were against the state of Russia. That's serious business. And there's obviously she's what, 6'7", 6'8", female, African-American. I mean, she would stand out amongst the Russian people. So, I mean, I'm just hoping no physical harm comes to her.
Yeah, hope not too. We all must remember, man, that just think about what America has been doing as far as the Ukraine war. They've been sending money over there, billions of dollars. They've been sending arms over there. So how do you think that Putin feels about that? And then the president, he goes on television and boasts about knocking off this guy, Al Qaeda, man. You know, what is he doing? What is he thinking about? Putin is not going to do anything to put a feather in Biden's cap under no circumstances. So this is going to be a very difficult thing that's coming out of there, man. And I really feel sorry for Brittney, but I wouldn't have gone over to play Russia or in China for no kind of money. What they are.
Mr. Bell, that's my question to Miss Janée Hayes over here. See, America is, to me, is so ass backwards when it comes to paying females. I got daughters. We're just talking about this, me and Gary. You got to pay the sisters. So how you gonna pay them? 25 times less than you pay the men. Now I know the product you're supposed to have on the court. I get that. No, but nah, y'all can compensate. Them women should not. Becky Hammond had to go over there. She had to go coach in the WNBA because she was coaching, I think, with the Spurs.
Yes.
And they were trying to get her paid, but then she went to the WNBA, and now they're trying to get her some more money, but they don't pay the women athletes. That ain't right. So they got to go overseas. They got to go someplace else to get top dollar. America ain't right when it comes to this female athletes, be it track and field, anything. The only reason they pay Serena and what's her name, Venus, that's beating everybody ass all over the world. They have to pay them. They beating everybody.
Was severely underpaid.
And they were severely underpaid to compare to the men. What's that crazy white boy name? Jimmy Collins, all them boys.
Go ahead, Janée. Let Janée in here. Let Janée go ahead.
Okay, so for the women's that's because my dad and I have this conversation all the time, and I have it with other men too. The women are difficult because the product is there, but the money isn't there. The revenue isn't there, and it all becomes a numbers game. So he actually proposed a great scenario. He said, well, why can't the WNBA become like a 501c3 so that the NBA can partner and dish out their money, their tax write-offs to bring up those salaries? Like there has to be some type of partnership formed if the general revenue generated from ticket sales and merchandise sales isn't there. And I do believe at this point in time with the growth of women's basketball and the men supporting it, that it could very well flourish given a different business structure, if you will. Like if it does have to become a 501c3, I don't see Chris Paul and LeBron and Kevin Durant and all of those people who have to have tax write-offs annually, not contributing to that organization. I really don't. They patronize the games every opportunity they get. And I'm just naming the head honchos. There are other ones with lesser contracts, if you will, that still support the WNBA. And I do honestly think they'd be in favor of some type of collective where they could be, because that would give them part ownership, and all of them are looking to be owners of different entities anyway. So it kind of serves a dual purpose. But until they rethink this infrastructure and how to build the WNBA, the money simply isn't there from a revenue standpoint to generate the high contracts.
Janée, that's a very creative approach, because now you're talking about creating a structure, a financial structure, where the income of our great African-American and the women basketball players at the professional level can be on the par of beginning to have an upward trajectory. And here's the other thing. Title IX, remember when they said at the college level that the females had to have equal representation and the sports must be financed? That type of approach needs to be taken at the professional level, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. That's a very creative approach. I wish you would make that to the commissioner of the WNBA, because that's
and Adam Silver, because Mr. Blount will tell you, Mr. Harold will tell you.
I have to give my dad credit. I stole that one.
No, but your dad is right, because the NFL.
Though.
The NFL is a 501. I think the NFL is a 501c3. I think.
Yes, it is.
So there you go. So the NFL 501c3, and they pimp daddies in the building. The NFL is straight pimp daddies. So what I'm saying
let me say this, man. The black athlete has never understood the tax write-offs that they have. They have never understood that. And you think I want to be a 501c3 and not get any grants or loans for 50 years? Because the black athletes that I come in touch with, they don't know nothing about the tax write-offs that they have, and they have not taken advantage of. They could easily help the WNBA flourish by them pooling their money together and bringing these girls on, or these women on equal footing. We're so selfish. All we think about is ourselves, man.
See how you getting to the crux of the matter, how this great Western economic system was set up. On the Western economies of the world moves on paper. It's assets and liabilities, debits and credit. You must always have more assets than liabilities and more credits than debits. And when they look, you got guys sitting in the NBA that's on the bench, sitting on the bench. Average salary is $5 million a year, and they don't even start. Can you imagine what that would do to the WNBA? I mean, if they had that kind of revenue flowing into that.
Did we find anything on Griner? Did we find any video on her?
Yeah, I've got what the network was putting out there for her. Here we go.
A world away from now Russian-detained WNBA star Brittney Griner, her Phoenix Mercury teammates held a 42-second silent tribute, an homage to her jersey number.
We know she's wrongfully imprisoned, and she's been declared that by our government. We know she'll be returning home with their hard work.
The Mercury learning just before their game that a Russian judge convicted Griner on drug smuggling and possession charges and sentenced her to 9 years in a Russian prison camp. From behind bars, a heartbroken Griner pleading for a milder sentence and apologizing.
I made an honest mistake.
Back in mid-February, Griner, who played Russian women's pro basketball in the WNBA offseason, was found with vape cartridges of cannabis oil in her bags at a Moscow area airport. Griner pleaded guilty, insisting it was a mistake. The judge finding criminal intent. Griner recognizing her trial has become politically pivotal.
I know everybody keeps talking about political pawn and politics, but I hope that that is far from this courtroom.
President Biden blasting Griner's sentence, saying in a statement that it is one more reminder of what the world already knew. Russia is wrongfully detaining Brittney. The U.S. awaiting Russia's response to its prisoner swap deal, offering Russian arms dealer Victor Bout for Griner and Russian-held former Marine Paul Whelan. A Kremlin spokesman refusing comment on that offer, saying doing so could hinder its progress. The White House urging Russia to negotiate.
There's a deal on the table. Let's make the deal. Let's get him home.
Meanwhile, Griner remains in a pretrial detention center as her lawyers begin her appeal, which could take months. Russia's foreign affairs minister also saying today that Presidents Biden and Putin keep a special channel for discussing prisoner exchanges and that channel remains relevant. Justin Finch, ABC News, Washington.
To Bill Russell, but before we move on to Bill Russell, I'm going to give everybody a minute. Jim Blount, take 1 minute and sum this Brittney Griner thing up.
This is high stake geopolitical dynamics we see playing out in our right in front of us, and it's so ironic. It's an African American athlete that's spearheading the point. That is fascinating, considering the history of the Western world and the conflict and the relationship that it had with people of color in this country.
Right, Andrew.
It's a sad state of affairs. I think, like Janée said, she should have been more in tune with the times. The fact that Russia was at war and the relationship that Putin has with Biden is different than the one that he had with Trump. I'm sure this is not the first time that she did this. I just hope and pray that it comes out to a positive end. But like Gary said, now that she's been sentenced, the negotiation truly can begin now.
All right, Janée?
It's definitely unfortunate, but I think it gives a time for reflection, introspection, amongst all parties to kind of understand where you are in this world, in time and in space, and grow from it. Granted, this is a hard growing pain, but it provides such a big picture that everybody can see and everybody can take a different analysis into how they move forward each day.
Okay. All right, come on in here, Nate.
No, I just think that know where you're going. You said it, Janée. Know where you're going. We have the ugly American syndrome. We will go places and think we the bomb diggity, and we don't know a damn thing about the law, about anything other than the fact that we from the Bronx. Yep. What? You can't do that. You can't do that. So I mean, I'm being facetious, but we cannot have the ugly American syndrome. So pay attention, particularly young folks. When you go someplace, know the laws. Particularly know the law. If you jaywalk in Toronto, Mr. Blount will tell you this, they will give you a ticket. No, seriously, Janée, if you jaywalk in Toronto, Canada, and the guy will tell you, come over here, here's a ticket, because I got one. So you got to know the law where you go, because ignorance ain't an excuse of the law. It's not.
Right, it's not.
Gary?
Well, I can tell you, as a former government officer who made his career in intelligence, I remember one time I was traveling in a place called Juarez, Mexico, drug capital of the world. Oof. And to Janée's point about knowing where you are, we had a driver as I was going to do a training session, and we got stopped by the police. And make a long story short, the police, talking in Spanish to the driver, said he wanted some money, some American money. from the two people in the car, me and my partner. And so I said, kind of animated, almost forgetting, almost like, the ugly American, but I should know better. I said, this is a shakedown by the police. And so I said, you know what, give him $5. Gave him $5. The police officer went back, came back to our driver that was talking in Spanish again. And the driver walked back to his car, and the driver said, nah, he wants more than $5. So I got all animated in the back of the car, and the driver, who spoke Spanish and English, he told me, he said, hey man, look, we had a Marine here 3 months ago who got drunk and was acting up. He's still here. Man, I ponied up a 20 real quick and asked if that was enough, just to make sure. And the police officer came back, came to our driver, and wrote down a number. And the driver reached back and put it in the back seat and said, this is your number. I said, what's this nut? He said, if you get stopped by any other police officer today, just give them that number. That lets them know you already donated. All right, so
that's keeping
let's take me to the place I can get my training session. Let's get on. So to Janae's point, you got to know where you are.
He is
I'm
right.
sitting up there in Juarez, Mexico, the drug capital of the world. I'd have ponied up 50 if I had to.
All right, Gary, let's move on. Let's move on to Bill Russell.
All right, let's look at
talk about Bill Russell, because Bill Russell was more than an athlete. What we got on Bill Russell, Gary?
Here we go. Let's do it.
The white and emerald banners say it all, a testament to Bill Russell's unrelenting pursuit of victory.
My father was the ultimate winner. His record speaks for itself.
Russell was the cornerstone, the beating heart of a great dynasty that dominated the NBA like no other team ever. In his 13 seasons in Boston from 1956 to 1969, Russell's Celtics won 11 championships.
There isn't anyone here that has had as much fun as I've had in my life.
In 1966, Russell led the Celtics to their 8th consecutive title. The next season, he became the NBA's first black head coach. In his 3 seasons as a player coach, Boston won 2 more championships. If anyone could appreciate Russell's unique brand of genius, it was his great rival, Wilt Chamberlain.
Boston Celtics were the best and greatest sports franchise of all times. Bill was the hub of that greatness.
But Russell wasn't content with winning on the court. He was a champion, too, in the struggle for civil rights. He helped reimagine the role of the athlete in society.
I think I had a lot to do with the respect that athletes are treated with, black and white.
Russell left Boston in 1969 and later coached in both Seattle and Sacramento. Later, he would mostly avoid the spotlight, but his immeasurable impact on sports and society is still being felt.
William F. Russell.
In 2011, at the age of 77, Russell was awarded the nation's highest civilian decoration, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. 2 years later, in Boston, this statue was unveiled.
One of my dad's favorite quotes is, he's not really sure about heaven. Heaven actually could be a step down for him, because for him, heaven was playing for the Boston Celtics with those guys.
Jeremy Schaap, ABC News, New York.
I just want to kick this off by saying that, the Boston Celtics team has been one of the most misunderstood franchises in the league for many, many years, because people had labeled the Boston Celtics as a racist team, when not realizing that it was the city that was racist. Walter Brown, the owner, and Red Auerbach made sure that the Boston Celtics was an equal opportunity employer from the get in 1950 when they drafted the first black player. And then, of course, they went on to bring Bill Russell aboard. In fact, Rochester had a lot to do with that, Bill Russell being in Boston, because he was supposed to go to Rochester.
Traded the boy for Don Circus.
But what happened, the owner found out that the owner of the Rochester Royals,
Les Harrison.
Escapades.
Escapades. Les Harrison.
So he called the owner and said, look here, I make sure that the ice capades are in Rochester this year if you bypass Bill Russell. And that's how Russell got to the Boston Celtics. And of course, the Celtics was the first one to play 5 black players, the first one to hire a black coach, the first one to have a black general manager, and all of this. And I was very close, not to Russell, but to Bill, to my man Red Auerbach, Sam Jones, and Casey Jones. They were like family. So I knew a lot of things that were going on behind the scenes. Russell went through a lot of racism, man, in the city. Red Auerbach and Walter Brown would not allow that in the Boston Garden. Those folks, like I said earlier, if they had the Ku Klux Klan robes and hoods, they left them in the car when they came to the Boston Garden. It's not, you know, the security had orders to put them out of there, you know? So today we're looking at diversity in the NBA like it's never been before. Just a few years ago, we were asking, where are the black coaches in the NBA? Now we got 16 black head coaches in the NBA, unheard of. And Boston was the leader, man, in bringing all this diversity about. So let's start off, Andrew, with you. Come on, Andrew.
Well, I was fortunate enough to know people like you and my dad, and to know of the Celtics legacy and the dichotomy, as you mentioned. Yep. Even today, my brother played at Boston College from 78 to 82. And even at that time, there were portions of Boston where you did not go if you were a black person. And to think that Red Auerbach and the owner of the Celtics were able to have an organization in that city, as racially segregated as they were, as racist as they were, to be the pioneer of all things African-American and black in terms of Bill Russell is incredible. And it's just been educational to me to understand that he is the greatest winner in all of sports. And as we talked about on my show, Harold, he's definitely on the Mount Rushmore of athletes with Ali and other folks because of what they did on and off the court.
Okay, Janée, come on, Janée.
So I'm obviously a newbie to this. I know who Bill Russell is, and I was just intrigued to see that he was a lefty. I'm always partial to lefties. He looks like a lefty in the video. So, but as I listened to his daughter speak and you guys speak about him and being a pioneer, I oftentimes look at this generation or my generation or generation before me to see what movement or what great steps, strides they've made as it pertains to risking their health, risking their wealth, risking anything of any significance or importance to them to ensure the betterment of the next generation. And I don't knock anybody, but it's inspiring to know that those individuals existed, but it's, I guess, equally as depressing to know that arguably my generation isn't particularly interested in that if it's not for likes or hits or things that solely benefit them. And if there's somebody else that benefits on the outskirts, then so be it.
Okay, Nate, come on, Nate.
Oh man, I was looking up Red Auerbach, right? Because it's interesting. The reason why Red Auerbach wasn't that crazy and Walter Brown, they wasn't from Boston. They were two white guys that were from New York City. A little different. You know, New York's a little more diverse. So for them to go up to Boston, and remember now, the Celtics started in New York. They were the New York Celtics. You know, a little bit of history. See, I love history. So they started in New York. They were the New York Celtics. Now, they didn't really move to Boston with the New York Celtics. They just like this move. And then the Knicks came. But the Celtics started out, and like I said, Walt and Red were from New York City. Diverse background. Bob Cousy from the Bronx. Okay, diverse background. Okay, so the guys on the team, like Mr. Bell said, welcome Bill Russell, welcome Sam Jones. Okay, they all wasn't from Boston. They're from all different parts of the country. But the thing that really stood out for me with Mr. Russell was really interesting. That picture that you saw, the iconic picture with Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell, Jim Brown, there's a guy in that picture by the name of Mr. John Wooten. And unless you really understand the NBA, John Wooten was the player personnel for the Dallas Cowboys. And he was just like Mr. Bill Russell, he was the first black guy to be in front office for the Cowboys. And Mr. Wooten and Mr. Russell had a really, really good relationship people don't know about, because Wooten was a guy pushing for the NFL, black head coaches, more diversity. Bill Russell was behind the scenes constantly pushing, like Mr. Bell said, more coaches, more women to be visible. But the dichotomy for me is he lived in Boston, couldn't stand Boston, married 4 times, first wife was black, other 3 wives is white. I'm trying to figure this out. Okay, so it's like he was like in that dichotomy himself for me. It's like, okay, you don't like where you're at, but yet still you acquiesce to this. I mean, I can't dissect the man's life, because I would love to have talked to him about that, because I think that's interesting. The second wife he married was a white lady. He got beat up in Boston for marrying her. She was like Miss USA or something. Got his ass kicked. I would figure after that, I'm good. Just me. But my man went deep. Okay. Because you can't tell Bill Russell what to do.
Okay. All right. Jim Blount. Come on in, Jim.
To me, when I looked at some of the film, especially that interview that the CBS Morning News did, the retired NBA, NFL football player, when he said that Bill Russell had 25 points, 25 rebounds, and 10 block shots in one game. That's unheard of. So essentially, he established a new matrix to measure the performance of an NBA player. That's the block shot. Now, how can you have 25 rebounds in one game? That's unheard of. So his expertise on the field
was did all the time. They were not keeping block shots. Will Chamberlain did this regularly on a game basis, man. He did it regularly. Go ahead. I just want to clear that up.
But I mean, that's just what he and to win what 8 straight championships and won 11 out of 13. I don't think that record is going to be replicated anywhere in hockey, NBA, baseball, or anything. But anyway, to me, getting back to what Mr. Brown just said, his moxie off the field. Because when they had that meeting, it was in Cleveland, Ohio, with Carl. He was the first black mayor of a major urban city. Carl Stokes and his brother Louis Stokes. Louis Stokes was so prominent down there where you live, Harold. He was called the 51st senator. No, the 101st senator of the United States. He knew how to get things done. But anyway, Jim Brown was at that meeting. Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell, John Wooten. Bobby Mitchell was there.
From the deep, yep.
Willie Davis. There was another person that was there. I mean, that was like a who's who of professional black athletes that were leading professional statistics in their area of expertise. And he took a stand. Bill Russell took a stand. I had to go out and buy his book for my grandsons because I wanted them to read it. Based on what he had experienced in Boston. So they would have an idea, this is the United States of America that you're living in. And he puts it right out there. But now Bill wasn't stupid. His daughter is a big time attorney. She has a law degree from Harvard University. She's with one of them big corporate law firms in Boston. So Bill understood. But getting to his first wife, she broke it. You got to remember when he started playing in 1956, I don't know what the salary was, but I know this gasoline was about 10, 11, 12 cents a gallon, and $5,000 with a pay period went a long way. Well, Bill would go on the road and he would come back home with be no money in the checking account.
Well, sister girls ain't going for that.
Spent all his money, and it didn't happen one time, it happened continuously. So he got a divorce and married someone else.
Okay, Gary. How about Gary? Come on, Gary.
To Mr. Blunt's point, I think that other young person was a young Lou Alcindor who was also with that meeting.
Right.
You got it. Gary.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, biggest winner. And like I said last week, we were talking about this. When you start talking about Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. Then we start talking like a barroom argument. But when you start talking about off the field, I mean, Bill Russell's on the Mount Rushmore of the things that he stood for. Oh my goodness. You know, and I was just young enough to see him play toward the end of his career. And I mean, but then I'm more noted for Bill Russell for what he stood for off the field and how he was labeled, you know, cantankerous and all this other stuff. He was just principled. He just wasn't yielding. That's all.
Well,
let me add something else.
Let's move on. Let's move into this barroom brawl that we get ready to get into.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, because number one, Bill Russell deserves all the credit, man, for being the greatest winner in team sports. There's no doubt about that. And Bill Russell established himself on the defensive end. Wilt Chamberlain is the greatest all-around basketball player to ever play the game, without a doubt. Wilt had averaged 50 points and 30 rebounds a game. Russell's never done that. Wilt scored 100 points. Wilt could do everything. He led the league in every offensive category. And they weren't really keeping block shots, man, when Wilt first started out. So when you start talking about both of these guys, say each one was the greatest, but they knew, like Russell said, I had to play against this guy every night. So I knew what I was up against. And Russell had a supporting cast. Wilt, without a doubt, is one of the greatest athletes of all time. And one thing I wanted to go to, we're always talking about the GOAT. There's always the GOAT this, the GOAT that. I say the only way that you can break down the greatest players of all time, you got to go to different eras. You can't put them all in the same era, man.
No, it's impossible.
You have to start at 1950 to 1970. Guess who the first name that I come up with? George Mikan. Have you ever heard of George Mikan? He got to be a GOAT during that time. So then you move on down to 1970 to 1990, and I named 10. Because I watched them. Chamberlain, Russell, Oscar Robertson, Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, Earl of Pearl Monroe, Walt Frazier, Dave Bing, Kareem, and Gus Johnson. I had a problem with Gus Johnson because I didn't know who to take over, Gus Johnson or Spencer Haywood. That would be my 10 players. You understand? And that's my opinion. Probably somebody else that got something. Then in 1990, you start off with Michael Jordan. In 2010 to 2030, you come up with LeBron James and Curry. So that's how you got to be able to do this thing and do it right. You got to pick them in each era, man, because they played different. The referees were different, the rules were different, the physical play was different.
But not only that, Mr. Bell, remember, you ain't played that, you didn't have that many teams either. So when the Celtics won those 11 championships, it wasn't like 32 teams in the league that is now. So you have to remember that there's a numbers game. So you're right. Even Bill Russell said, I had teammates. Bill Russell, Tom, what's that boy named? Tom Brady. They're all fortunate to have good squads, good teammates, which can elevate their games. Tom Brady's a GOAT, yeah, but he always had good teams. He always had good defenses. Just like with the Celtics, they always had great teams. Lakers never had good teams like that. They did, but they couldn't beat the Celtics. Every time the Lakers tried, and I know my man Elgin Baylor went to this grave like, damn it, I couldn't even get one. Elgin couldn't even get one. And Mr. Bell got him on his list. Elgin Baylor was nasty, but he could not get past the Celtics. Jerry West barely got past the Celtics, and I don't know how the hell he's a logo. To this day, how he the logo. He ain't even a winningest player.
One of the greatest players of all time, Jerry West. I don't care what.
But he ain't the logo, Mr. Bell. He ain't the logo to me. If you go to the logo, the logo should be either your man Wilt Chamberlain.
That's white privilege.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's the point I'm making to you. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he ain't the logo, or Michael Jordan now. That's the logo. But it ain't Jerry West.
Okay, Andrew, come on in. We're running out of time.
Well, we're talking about the GOAT conversation. Okay, yes, I agree with you.
Conversation.
I agree with you. it has to be separated by eras because it's not an apples to apples comparison.
That's right.
And I have to defer to you. Like you said, one thing about you, Harold, you are a pioneer for Blacks, but you're always fair. You're a pioneer for what's fair and what's right. And to mention Bob Pettit and Jerry West and how great they were is a testament to how you're about telling it like it is. And Michael Jordan is of course, my generation's GOAT. And then one of the lanes you left off between LeBron is the Kobe Bryant.
Oh,
the impact that he had, Shaq, in that era. So it's not an apples to apples comparison. It's the sport that African Americans have had the greatest impact. But I agree with you. It's foolhardy to try to compare them without doing it by eras.
Right. All right, Janée, who's your ghost in your era?
Oh, MJ. Like, I don't even get into arguments with people because I'm like, I'm not, because one, I understand that I'm not well-versed enough. I'm smart enough to know what I don't know. Right. So I don't need, so I'm not going to make arguments to people so that people know my real level of ignorance. I just stay mute. So my GOAT for my era is Michael Jordan. And it might be fanaticism. It might be how he changed the game. Just changed the not even the game per se, but everything, the publicity surrounding the game. Like Be Like Mike, you had songs about him. He just changed not the genre, what is the word I'm looking for? The culture. Yeah. The culture of the game. And I think the next person that changed the culture was probably AI. But those are the two revolutionaries that I look for, not in GOAT category, but just affecting the game in other ways outside of basketball.
Okay, Jim Blount, come on in here as we try to get out of here.
Mr. Blount, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
You got to mute yourself, Mr. Blount.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay, I got knocked off for some reason. I look at the different era they played in. See, I'm an old guy. I've been into Yankee Stadium and watching the New York Giants and the San Francisco 49ers. One time it was the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. And a quarterback named Y.A. Tittle got knocked out. I mean, knocked out. The players they didn't have an ambulance, a 911 vehicle to go on the field and pick you up, put you on a gurney. And Tom Brady has never been hit. The only people put some pads on him was when Tom Coughlin and the New York Giants beat him in that Super Bowl. And they knocked him down the first play of the game and he wasn't right set. So then they changed the rules. You can't hit the quarterback now. And I think about a gentleman that's on your show, Deegan Jones. Deegan Jones would tear you up and it was legitimate to hit. Well, wait a minute. We playing football. This ain't no pity-pat game. I don't think the GOAT could hold up under that kind of pressure, okay? I've seen Johnny Unitas get knocked out, broken nose, put some mud on it and come back and win a game. Well, you know, the quarterback, we got to take care of him. Well, look what just happened to Josh Allen. He got hit a little bit by one of his own players. He wanted to start a fight, his own teammate. Don't touch me. Look, this is football. This is a contact sport. So,
yeah, it's got to be different.
When you look at people playing in different eras, how do they stack up against some of the earlier guys? Just like Chuck Bednarik from the old Philadelphia Eagles. That man played offensive. He was the center on the offensive side of the ball and a linebacker. He knocked out Frank Gifford, knocked him, clean hit. I mean, it was just a hit. That's football.
Different day, different day, different.
Yeah, different day. That's a good way of putting it, Harold.
I got let Gary come in. We got to get out of here. We're running out of time. Gary, what's your take as we try to get out of here?
No, I mean, I grew up. My parents were season ticket holders, Redskin fans. You know, so I grew up at RFK Stadium, and my father was Griffith Stadium, and I would see these clothesline hits and all these other, you know, that are not legal today, you know, but the game has changed because of money and revenue. And so, and it's an entertainment sport, but we still have supreme athletes in almost every major sport. You know, we just got to make sure we keep the revenue models and the streams But it's all about the money. You can have a losing team and still, if you're an owner, you know, so what? We 0-13 or whatever. We still revenue share.
Speaking of owners, the Denver Broncos has the most black folks right now in ownership, and includes Condoleezza Rice. So, you know, they're trying to do their thing, Gary. You're right.
Yeah, she's an avid football fan, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, man, we gotta get ready to get out of here. I wanna say before I go out of here, I wanna congratulate Andrew Dyer, man, in the great reach back that you've been able to do down through the years, because that's why I asked you. I wanted to get all the great journalists that came through Roundball Report in their affiliate. Well, you don't have time. You blew me away when I was on your show when you were calling them out. I want to be able to put their names in the credits. Everybody that came through Roundball Report who went on to become journalists, professional journalists, cameramen. I mean, that is unbelievable, because you know what? It's a lot of folks that I always talk about that came through me, the James Brown, the Michael Wilbon, the Dave Aldridge, the Kathy Hughes. They did not reach back. They waited until they got big, then they said they brought somebody. You got to start, man, pulling people back from the very beginning. And that's what I've always done. And Andrew, you were there when Earl Lord had been overlooked for the NBA Hall of Fame. And I called the meeting. I called my young people to the meeting. I called you. I called Christy Winter Scott. I called Butch McAdams. You know, young folks to be a part of this. So you were able to, you know, to benefit from that. And I just want to say congratulations, man, because, you know, you've been doing this stuff a long time. You got a long trail of history, man. So thank you. And we got to thank, like we did the other night, we got to thank Brian McIntyre, who was the public relations man for the NBA, that were able to get Christy and Winter Scott and my boy Mike. And Janée, you went to the NBA All-Star for the first time. You know, that wasn't Harold Bell, that was Brian McIntyre.
Congratulations.
Who pulled those things off. So, Andrew, I just want to say, man, great job.
Congratulations, Andrew. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Each one teach one. Just follow the pathway set by Harold Bell.
Yes. And I just wish on that note that the GOAT in your era, Michael Jordan, was a little bit more socially conscious. And I'll leave it at that.
Agreed.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. I'm just saying, you know,
I want to leave this with the thought for the day. This was written by a friend of mine that just did this thing on his own, named Clayton Roberts. And the thought for today is right and wrong, okay? He said, as cum laude of my graduating class at Right and Wrong University, I achieved this high honor because I wrote my thesis on right and wrong. Included in this thesis is how to immediately determine one from the other. I started with an example of wrong. When a person has inflicted a wrongful act upon you, most time it has a hurtful effect. Knowing well how self-defeating and wrong anger is, it can still be the first response to how you feel. This is where your intelligence should kick in. Your intelligence, which is close kin to right, as in the right thing to do, to tell you to distance yourself from this person, which means you're not angry, you just rather not be bothered. Now that is wrong in the proper perspective. Right is easy. You just have to let go and let God. What a Relief by Clayton Roberts. He did that off the top of his head, man. I think does that make a lot of sense?
Makes sense to me.
All right. Hey, gang, thanks so much for taking time to be on here on Speak the Truth, and you're welcome to come back anytime. As you know, I don't like folks who claim they know everything. And we got some of those folks in our midst, in our community that will not ask when they don't know. They want to be the experts. And I call some names here, and I don't want to even leave the show like that. I just want to see. Remember this.
Does he call everybody out like this, Gary?
Hey, remember this, man. You cannot soar with eagles if you hang out with chickens. Bye.
Hey, be safe, everybody. Till next time.
Mr. Bell, you are one in a million.
Gone.